Have you ever looked in the mirror and seen a stranger? Not a stranger to you, but the stranger you've chosen to become. The version of you that smiles when it wants to scream, that agrees when it wants to argue, that stands still when every fiber of its being is begging to run. I became that stranger. I painted on a smile, I softened my voice, and I became the perfect reflection of what she wanted to see. I played the fool. I played the loyal friend. I played along so perfectly that when I finally showed her who I really was, the shock didn't just break her, it redefined her entire world. My name is Maya, and this is the story of how I buried my true self to survive, and how I dug myself out, leaving my best friend, Chloe, trapped in the grave she dug for me. It all started, as the best things often do, with a dream. Chloe and I, we were two halves of a whole. We met in college, two art students with paint under our fingernails and galaxies in our eyes. She was the fire, loud, brilliant, captivating. I was the water, calm, deep, reflective. Together, we were unstoppable. We'd stay up all night in our tiny apartment, surrounded by canvases and empty coffee cups, dreaming of the gallery we would open one day. Soulfire Gallery, we called it. A place where art wasn't just seen, but felt. After graduation, the dream was the only thing that kept us warm in a cold, unforgiving city. We worked dead-end jobs, saving every penny. I was a barista, my hands forever smelling of bitter coffee. Chloe landed a slightly better job as a receptionist at a corporate firm. We were struggling, but we were together. We had a pact, a blood oath made with shared dreams and whispered promises in the dark. And then the miracle happened. Or what I thought was a miracle. I'll never forget the day I came home. My feet aching, my spirit tired. Chloe was bouncing on the balls of her feet, her eyes wide with an excitement I hadn't seen in months. In her hand, she held a letter. A thick, expensive, cream-colored envelope. Maya, she breathed, her voice trembling. We did it. We got it. The investor. My heart stopped. An investor? We had been sending out our business proposal for months, a Hail Mary pass into the void. We never expected it to actually be caught. Who? I asked, my voice a whisper. She told me the name. Alexander Thorne. A name that echoed in the city's business circles. A man known for his ruthless efficiency and his surprising soft spot for the arts. He loved our proposal. He loved our vision. He was willing to fund the entire project. Soulfire Gallery was no longer a dream. It was a blueprint, a reality, waiting to be built. We cried. We laughed. We held each other. In that moment, I believed our friendship was unbreakable, a fortress built on shared struggle and triumph. I had no idea that within the walls of that fortress, Chloe was already laying the first brick of my betrayal. The meeting with Alexander Thorne was everything we dreamed of. His office was all glass and steel, with breathtaking city views. He was a man in his 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He praised our business plan, our concept. But his eyes kept drifting to Chloe. She was the one doing most of the talking, her voice confident, her gestures expansive. She presented our ideas as if they were a solo performance. I didn't think much of it then. That was just Chloe. She was the front woman. I was the quiet engine in the back. That's how we worked. Or so I thought. As we were leaving, Mr. Thorne shook our hands. He held Chloe's a moment longer. You have a remarkable vision, Chloe, he said. A true leader. He barely looked at me. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. But I ignored it. This was for us. For Soulfire. This was our chance. The months that followed were a whirlwind. We found a perfect, sun-drenched space in a trendy neighborhood. We signed leases, met with contractors, curated artists. I poured my soul into it. While Chloe handled the meetings with Alexander, I handled the heart of the gallery, the art, the layout, the soul. I was the one who spent nights with the painters and sculptors, understanding their work, finding the perfect piece for the perfect spot. I was building the world we had dreamed of, brick by beautiful brick. But slowly the dynamic began to shift. Chloe started dressing differently. sharper, more expensive clothes. She started using phrases I didn't recognize, business jargon she'd picked up from Alexander. Our late-night dream sessions were replaced by her calls with him, her voice hushed and serious behind her bedroom door. One evening, over takeout surrounded by fabric swatches and floor plans, she dropped the first bomb. "Maya," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Alexander thinks, and I agree, that for the gallery to be taken seriously, it needs a single, strong, public face. A clear leader. The media, the investors, they need one person to connect with." The fork froze halfway to my mouth. "What are you saying, Chloe?" She finally looked at me, and her gaze was steady, cold. "I'm going to be the director. The public face. You'll be the head curator, of course. It's just a title, Maya. It doesn't change anything." But it did. It changed everything. The first crack had appeared in our perfect dream. And I, like a fool, simply smiled and nodded. I played along, because I was scared. Scared to lose the dream. Scared to lose my best friend. So I swallowed the lump in my throat, buried the rising dread, and told myself it was for the best. She was better at the public stuff anyway. Right? Oh, how beautifully I lied to myself. How expertly I played the part of the supportive, quiet partner. But the water that appears calm on the surface hides the deepest, strongest currents. And my current was beginning to turn. The grand opening of Soulfire Gallery was a night straight out of our college fantasies. The air was thick with the smell of champagne and expensive perfume. The city's elite mingled under the soft, strategic lighting, their admiring murmurs bouncing off the pristine white walls. My walls. Our art. But as I stood in my simple black dress, watching Chloe hold court in the center of the room, I felt a hollow ache in my chest. She was radiant. She wore a crimson gown that screamed power. She was giving interviews, laughing, her hand resting lightly on Alexander Thorne's arm. She was the star. And I was part of the scenery. I tried to be happy. I tried to feel the pride we were supposed to share. But every time a journalist asked about the vision behind a specific collection, Chloe would smile her brilliant, public smile and say, "Oh, it was a collaborative effort, but I felt this piece perfectly captured the energy we wanted to project." I wanted. The word "we" was slowly disappearing from her vocabulary. The worst moment came when an older, respected art critic, a woman with kind eyes, approached me. She gestured to a stunning, melancholic landscape I had fought for weeks to include. "This piece," she said, "it's the heart of the gallery, isn't it? There's a deep, quiet sadness here, a resilience. Who is the visionary behind this curation?" Before I could open my mouth, Chloe was there, sliding between us like a shark. Mrs. Davison. So glad you appreciate it. That was one of my more intuitive choices. I felt it balanced the more aggressive pieces in the West Wing." She steered the critic away, throwing a casual "Great job, Maya," over her shoulder as if I were a hired helper. I stood there, completely frozen. The noise of the party faded into a dull roar in my ears. My vision blurred. That was my piece. My find. My late-night conversation with a heartbroken artist that convinced him to let his pain be seen. And she had just taken it. She had taken my truth and presented it as her own. That was the night the seed was planted. A tiny, hard seed of cold, clear understanding. This wasn't my gallery anymore. It was hers. And I was just an employee. The months after the opening were a slow, painful erosion of everything we had built. My ideas were suddenly not quite commercially viable. My artist friends were too niche. My input in meetings was met with patient smiles and then ignored. Chloe and Alexander were a unit now, a powerful duo that made all the final decisions. I felt myself becoming a ghost in my own dream. I'd walk through the gallery, seeing my fingerprints on every choice, yet feeling completely invisible. The final, shattering blow came on a rainy Tuesday. I'd stayed late, working on the books. Chloe had left her laptop open on her desk. A notification popped up. An email from Alexander Thorne. The subject line was visible. partnership agreement, and Maya. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was wrong. I knew it was wrong. But the need to know, to understand the poison that was killing my life, was too strong. I clicked it, and my world fell apart. The email chain was a conversation spanning weeks. It was a blueprint of my betrayal. Chloe had written to him. Alexander, I agree completely. Maya's aesthetic is charming, but it lacks the sophistication for the high-end market we're targeting. Her continued involvement as a decision-maker could limit our growth. His reply. The legal structure is being drawn up. The initial partnership was a handshake for the investors. The official corporate documents will list you as the sole owner and director. We'll offer her a generous severance and a consultant title to ease her out. It's cleaner this way. And the final email from Chloe, sent just that morning. It's for the best. She's holding us back. I'll handle it after the Van Gogh exhibit. She doesn't need to know the details yet. I stumbled back from the desk, my hand clamped over my mouth. The room spun, holding us back. She'll handle me? Like I was a problem. A piece of trash to be taken out after a party. The pain was so physical it stole my breath. It was a white-hot knife twisting in my gut. This wasn't just business. This was personal. She hadn't just stolen my gallery. She had stolen our friendship, our history, our promises. She had taken every late-night confession, every shared fear, every whispered dream, and she had used them as a map to find my most vulnerable points. I sat on the cold, polished concrete floor of the gallery we had built together, and I cried. I cried for the loss of my dream. I cried for the death of my best friend. I cried until there were no tears left. And when the tears were gone, something else remained. Something cold. Something hard. Something patient. The shock and pain began to crystallize into a single, focused thought. Revenge. But not a loud, messy revenge. Not a screaming match or a legal threat she would see coming. No. She thought I was weak. She thought I was quiet. She thought I would break. She had no idea that the quiet ones are the most dangerous. Because we listen. We observe. We remember. And I had been listening and observing and remembering for a very, very long time. I wiped my tears. I stood up. And I made a decision. I would not scream. I would not cry. I would not leave. I would play along. Walking into the gallery the next morning was the hardest performance of my life. My eyes were puffy. My soul felt bruised. But my face was a mask of serene calm. Chloe was already there, sipping her espresso, looking over papers. She glanced up, her expression carefully neutral. Morning, Maya. You're in early. I gave her a small, tired smile. The smile of a dedicated worker, not a betrayed friend. Lots to do for the Van Gogh immersive exhibit, I said, my voice even. It's a huge project. I saw a flicker of surprise in her eyes. She was expecting anger. Tears. An accusation. She was braced for a storm. And I gave her stillness. It disarmed her completely. Right, the Van Gogh, she said, recovering. Alexander is very excited about it. It's going to put us on the map. I know, I said softly, turning to my computer. I'll make sure it's perfect. And I meant it. But my definition of perfect was about to change. This was my plan. I would become the most dedicated, indispensable, and utterly unthreatening employee she could ever imagine. I would lean into the role she had assigned me. The quiet curator. The background player. I would make Soulfire Gallery more successful than she could ever dream, using all my skill, all my knowledge, all my connections. I would make her dependent on me. I would make her trust me implicitly. I would make her feel so secure, so powerful, so untouchable, that she would never see the ground crumbling beneath her feet until it was too late. The Van Gogh immersive exhibit was my masterpiece. It was a logistical nightmare, a technical marvel. It required negotiating with international archives, coordinating with tech teams, designing a sensory experience that was both grand and intimate. I threw myself into it. I worked 18-hour days. I solved problems before she even knew they existed. And I made sure she got all the credit. In meetings with Alexander, I would present an idea and then immediately add, but Chloe had the initial vision for how to frame it. When a journalist called, I would defer to her. Oh, you'll have to speak with Director Vance about that. It's her area of expertise. I fed her ego. I made her shine brighter. And she loved it. She started to relax. The wary look stopped. She began to confide in me again, not as a friend, but as a loyal subordinate. She would complain about the stress, about Alexander's demands, about the burden of leadership. I would just nod and listen, a sympathetic smile on my face. Inside, I was collecting every piece of information, every vulnerability, every secret. I was a vault, and she was filling me with the very tools of her own destruction. One evening, she let something slip, a secret that made my blood run cold, but also sent a thrill of grim satisfaction through me. Sometimes I think Alexander only invested because of his messy divorce, she sighed, swirling the wine in her glass. We were working late, a rare moment that almost felt like the old days. He needed a big, public, philanthropic win to look good for the courts. A lot of the initial capital, let's just say, he was very creative with the accounting, moving funds from one shell company to another. It's all perfectly legal, of course, she added quickly, just complex. I kept my expression neutral, interested but not alarmed. That's smart, I said softly, using business as a shield. Exactly, she said, relieved I understood. It's all about perception. Perception. That was the key. She and Alexander lived in a world of perception, of glossy surfaces and carefully constructed images. They thought they were untouchable because they controlled the narrative. But I was about to change the narrative. The Van Gogh exhibit was a monumental success. The reviews were rapturous. The gallery was the talk of the city. The night of the opening, Chloe was crowned the new queen of the art world. Alexander Thorne stood by her side, beaming with pride. They were the power couple of culture. I stood in the shadows, watching. I watched Chloe accept accolades for work she barely understood. I watched her bask in the glow of my achievement. And I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Because her triumph was the final brick in the wall she had built around herself. The higher she climbed, the harder she would fall. After the last guest had left, she found me, clearing away empty glasses. She put a hand on my arm. Her eyes were glazed with champagne and victory. Maya, she said, her voice thick with false affection. This never would have happened without you. Really? I looked into her eyes, my own gaze clear and steady. I know, I said, my voice quiet but firm. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. A hint of unease. A ghost of recognition. But it was gone as quickly as it came, drowned in her arrogance. She patted my arm. Let's talk tomorrow. About your future here. I think we can make your position more permanent. I just nodded. Oh, Chloe, I thought. You have no idea how permanent this is going to be. The performance was almost over. The curtain was about to rise on the final act. My truth was ready. And it was going to shatter her perfectly perceived world into a million unrecognizable pieces. The day of the board meeting arrived. It was the quarterly review, where Chloe would present the gallery's financials and future plans to Alexander and a few silent investors. It was the most important meeting of the year. The venue? The main hall of Soulfire Gallery, surrounded by the very art that I had curated. I dressed carefully, not in my usual muted curator's uniform, but in a sharp, tailored black suit. It was my armor. My hair was pulled back. My posture was straight. The mask of the quiet, compliant Maya was gone. In its place was the real me, the woman who had been forged in fire, the woman she had created. I walked into the gallery. The board was already assembled around the large oak table. Chloe was at the head, radiant and confident, clicking through a polished PowerPoint presentation. Alexander sat to her right, looking pleased. They all looked up as I entered. The room fell silent. Chloe's smile was condescending. Maya, good. You can take the minutes. We're just reviewing the Van Gogh numbers. Stellar, aren't they? I didn't move. I didn't sit. I stood at the foot of the table, my hands resting lightly on the back of a chair. I'm not here to take minutes, Chloe, I said, my voice clear and calm, cutting through the air-conditioned hum of the room. She blinked. Excuse me? I'm here to make a presentation of my own, I said. I held up a small, sleek flash drive. If you'll indulge me. Alexander Thorne leaned forward, his eyes narrowed with interest and maybe a hint of annoyance. This is highly irregular, Maya. We have a full agenda. I think you'll find my agenda enlightening, I said, my gaze locking with his before turning back to Chloe. It's about the true origins of Soulfire and the true nature of its leadership. Chloe's face went pale. She tried to laugh it off. Maya, what is this? Some kind of performance art? This isn't the time. It's exactly the time, I said. I walked to the main presentation screen and plugged in the flash drive. You see, while you were busy being the public face, Chloe, I was busy being the foundation. And a good foundation knows all the secrets the beautiful facade is trying to hide. I clicked a button. The first image filled the screen. It was a scanned copy of our original, handwritten business plan. The one we'd written together in our apartment, complete with coffee stains and our alternating handwriting. My writing detailing the artistic vision, her writing outlining the business strategy. This, I said, is Soulfire. Not a corporate entity. Not a branding opportunity. A dream. A shared dream. I could feel the investors shifting uncomfortably. Alexander's face was stone. Maya, this is ridiculous. Chloe started, her voice tight. I clicked again. Up came the email chain. The one I had found on her laptop. I enlarged the most damning lines. Asterisk, Maya's aesthetic is charming but lacks sophistication. The official corporate documents will list you as the sole owner. She's holding us back. Asterisk, a collective, sharp intake of breath filled the room. Chloe was as white as the gallery walls. That's a private email. You had no right. I had every right, I said, my voice dropping, becoming deadly quiet. You were stealing my life. But that's not even the best part. I turned to Alexander. You see, Mr. Thorne, while Chloe was telling you I was holding you back, she was also telling me your secrets. I clicked to the next file. It was an audio recording. From my phone. I had started recording every conversation with her after I discovered the emails. I pressed play. Asterisk, Chloe's voice, slightly slurred from wine. Sometimes I think Alexander only invested because of his messy divorce. He needed a big, public, philanthropic win to look good for the courts. A lot of the initial capital, let's just say, he was very creative with the accounting. Moving funds from one shell company to another. Asterisk, the silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Alexander Thorne slowly stood up. His face was a thundercloud. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Chloe, his eyes blazing with a cold, furious fire. You foolish, talkative girl, he whispered, the words dripping with venom. It's not what you think, Alexander. Chloe stammered, panic seizing her. She's twisting my words. She's lying. Am I? I said, my voice still calm. A stark contrast to her hysterics. I clicked one final time. The screen split into two. On one side, a document I had quietly procured through an artist friend who worked in finance, a trail of transactions linking Thorne's shell companies to the gallery's initial funding, a trail that looked creative, to say the least. On the other side, a legal document my new lawyer had prepared, a civil suit for intellectual property theft, breach of verbal partnership, and emotional distress, naming both Chloe Vance and Alexander Thorne. I played along, Chloe, I said, finally turning to face her fully. My voice was soft, but it echoed in the dead silence. I played the quiet, loyal friend. I played the dedicated employee. I let you take the credit. I let you shine. Because I knew that the higher you climbed on a ladder built on my work and my silence, the more it would hurt when I finally pulled it out from under you. I took a step closer to the table. You thought my quietness was weakness. You thought my reflection was all there was to me. But you never looked deep enough to see the current underneath. You took my dream, Chloe. You took our friendship, and you crushed it. So I took your success, and I'm about to do the same. I looked at the stunned investors. The soul of this gallery was mine. The business is now toxic. The choice is yours. I unplugged the flash drive. I looked at Chloe one last time. Her mouth was open. Her eyes were wide, vacant with shock. She was trembling. The brilliant, powerful director Vance was gone. In her place was exposed, terrified woman who had just lost everything in the span of 5 minutes. She was completely, utterly, devastatingly shocked. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the gallery. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel the devastation I left in my wake. It was quiet. It was clean. It was over. The fallout was swift and brutal. Alexander Thorne, to save his own skin, immediately cut all ties with Chloe and the gallery. The investors pulled out. The story, of course, leaked. Not from me. I was done with the spotlight. But the art world is a small town. The tale of the brilliant, betrayed co-founder who orchestrated the perfect revenge was too juicy not to spread. Chloe was finished. The gallery shut down within months. She was left with nothing but a mountain of debt and a reputation as a backstabbing liar. I heard she moved back to her hometown. The fire I had once loved in her had been extinguished, not by a roar, but by a quiet, relentless truth. As for me, the lawsuit was settled out of court. I received a significant sum, not from a desire for money, but as a symbol of justice, an acknowledgement of what was taken from me. But I didn't use it to open another gallery. The dream of Soulfire had died in that betrayal. You can't resurrect a dream once it's been poisoned. Instead, I did something different. I bought a small, quiet studio on the outskirts of the city, a place filled with light, and I started painting. For the first time in years, I was creating my own art. Not for a market, not for a critic, but for myself.
My work was different now. Deeper.
It had shadows, but it also had an incredible, powerful light. It told stories of quiet strength, of water that could wear away stone, of roots that could crack concrete. I found a different kind of success, a quieter one, the kind that fills your soul instead of your bank account. So, what is the moral of this story? Is it that revenge is sweet? In a way, yes. But it's not the sugary sweetness of victory. It's the bitter, clean sweetness of liberation. The real lesson is this: never mistake quiet for weakness. Never mistake kindness for stupidity. And never, ever believe that the person reflecting your light has none of their own. My revenge wasn't about destroying Chloe. It was about reclaiming myself. I had to become a shadow to remember how to stand in the light. I had to play a part to remember who I really was. The shock I left her with wasn't just about losing a gallery. It was the shock of realizing that the person she thought she could control, the person she thought was her reflection, was actually a force of nature she never saw coming. And to anyone out there who feels unseen, who feels used, who feels like their light is being dimmed by someone else's shadow, be patient. Be quiet. Be smart. Your truth is your most powerful weapon. And sometimes, the most shocking thing you can do is simply to finally show it.